Hey there, CPO here, and I had a delivery today from my faithful USPS driver, and Amazon Prime comes through as always. So I mentioned in my last video when I was talking about my EDC carry, in particular this Benchmade mini Griptillion, that I was actually considering making a change for my EDC knife to the Spyderco Manix 2 lightweight, and that's what this is. So it came today, and I'm not going to do a full-on review of this knife because there are about 1 million of them on YouTube because I watch them all, so I know that to be the case. But what I will do is give you sort of my first thoughts about it, especially coming from the mini Griptillion, looking at swapping things up on the EDC side. So right away I can tell you it feels lighter than I expected it to, and also felt initially out of the box, I'm gonna admit this, it felt sort of cheap, like plasticky. But the more I've played with it, the more I've handled it, the more I realize it really is a solid tool. It's not a toy, and once I got over the feel of the plasticky grip, now it doesn't bother me at all. So that was my initial feel, was like, man, it's a plastic knife? I don't know. The reason it's plastic and the reason I got the lightweight version is because exactly that. I wanted the lightweight version. For an EDC knife, something that I'll carry in my pocket at work, in my waistband at work, or come summertime, perhaps in my waistband with a pair of shorts, lighter is always better for me. So that's sort of the reason I went with the lightweight. Now, it's not much heavier than the mini Griptillion, which is interesting because it's a lot more knife. I mean, if you look at the size of these two knives, it's pretty impressive that the weight is pretty close to being the same. As a matter of fact, let's put them on the scale. I'll show you exactly how these things weigh up. All right, we're set in ounces. This is the mini Griptillion. 2.67 ounces, so roughly 2.7. And 2.89, so it'll round up to 2.9 ounces. So that's remarkably similar given the differences in size of these two. And so that's pretty impressive. Again, if you look at the blade differences, you're getting a significantly wider blade and quite a bit longer. And of course, I went with the straight edge so that I didn't lose part of it with the serrations. But actual blade length, if you put them up right next to each other, I mean, isn't that much, half an inch maybe total, but still a lot more metal. So all of the weight on this one, a lot of the weight is in the handle. With the Spyderco, a lot of the weight is in the blade. Now, so the other interesting thing about this is I was concerned about balance. I figured, oh, the blade's going to be super heavy, and the handle is not. It's going to be like out of balance. But actually, it balances quite nicely right at the lock, which is kind of cool. I didn't expect that. So I like that balanced feel. So it feels nice. That's where I would basically primarily grip the knife, and it's balanced right there, which is really, really nice. Some other first impressions, I did loosen up the screws here. So the early version of the Manix didn't come with adjustable tension here. This version, the later versions do. So I loosened that up just a little bit to give some freedom for the blade so that I can easily open and close it with just the ball bearing lock. And that's the way I prefer it. I'm going to put some Loctite on that once I'm sure I know what tension I want it at, just to make sure that that stays put. I miss the thumb hole. I've had a Spyderco before. I think I probably had a Delica before, a long time ago. I love this hole. It's very easy to get a purchase on with several fingers. Thumb, you know, pretty much it's easy, and I like that. I like the wire clip. I do wish it was a deeper carry, but that's not too bad. And it slips in and out of the pocket nicely. I've got no real complaints there. Huge lanyard hole. Probably will never use it, but if I do, it's there. What else? The lock is super tight. So I did some research, and people have said that this ball bearing spring here and all of that action tends to be really tight out of the box, but will wear in over time. So I'm hoping that with use it will loosen up. But right now there's no way I'm going to open this with one finger. I have to use both fingers and basically jam the knife into my palm to get it to loosen up. Of course, that doesn't matter if you're using the spider hole. It only really matters if you're closing it. But that's something that will hopefully loosen up with time. The other observation I have is the jimping on the back is, people say it's sharp, and it is definitely sharp and pronounced, very grippy. I like it. This on the Benchmade is there. It's prominent, but it's not quite as aggressive feeling. So I do like that. I do like the fact that I can get up. I've got the choil up front, and I can really sort of get down on this blade if I need to do some fine work. But I'm happy with the feel. Like I said, I had a friend who had a Manix 2, the G10 version, and it was heavy, but I really liked it. So I was curious what the lightweight was going to do for me, and I like it. Now, the one downside of this is, if you call it a downside, is the steel. So this is the CTS BD1, and there's a lot of mixed opinion on this steel. A lot of people say it's a great sort of working knife steel, easy to sharpen. Edge retention could be better, but it's easy to sharpen, and it gets sharp. So it's probably one that I'll have to maintain more regularly. But the fact that it's easy to sharpen is one of the reasons I went with it. So the price point is the primary reason, because this knife in BD1 was 75 bucks. If I start getting up into any other blade qualities, the next closest price point is about 120, 116 to 120. What was that, 110 or whatever it was, I don't even remember now. So that took it out of my impulse buy price range. So 75 bucks, it's probably worth it to have a knife that I can, maintain and carry around with me and just sort of beat on a little bit. When I get higher than that, I've got to think harder about it. So I looked really hard at all the different blade options and found myself looking in the $150, $160 range by the time I'm done, basically double the price of this one. And I thought, you know what? Do I need those? Do I need that steel? I probably don't. Most people say that this steel is just fine for an EDC knife. So if you have any opinions on that, please let me know. The other thing, again, is the sharpenability. The other higher end blades tend to be harder to sharpen and then stay sharp longer. So I'd rather have an easy to sharpen one that I can touch up really quick without having to spend a lot of time and effort in sharpening it. So anyway, those are my thoughts. So far I like it. I'll carry it, for a week or two before I make my final decision on how I feel about it. But yeah, this is not a bad purchase for 75 bucks. I mean, it was cheaper than this one. It's lighter and bigger, and that's kind of what I was going for. Okay, it's not lighter. It feels lighter because it's bigger, but it weighs the same. Thanks for watching. I'll catch you on the next one.